Good morning. Good morning to each and every one of you. Welcome to Mornings with Marvel, where authenticity lives and thrives to create a space of growth, healing, and joy. I am your host, Andrea Lawful Sanders, and each day we will cover the topics that are informative and engaging while learning from each other. You know what I remember this morning? That I actually have an instrumental that I paid for when I was on the radio station. This is my own. I own it, and so I'm using the instrumental now instead of the words to open my show each morning. So I'm grateful for that. Good morning, Auntie 65. Good morning, Sweetie Pie. How are you? Good morning to everyone. Good morning to good morning, my friends. Good morning. It is Wednesday. We have another guest today, and I'm grateful that we are now filling up our slots. People are asking to have conversations about what's going on, in their lives, etc. I got to meet Senator Nick Miller from Allentown yesterday at a dinner, and he is all of 30 years old, and I'm about that life. I believe that young people should be given the opportunities to grow and to thrive you know throughout their journey, and oftentimes we find that that's not the case. So today we're going to have a conversation. We'll have a guest. I'll do some news. I'll talk to all of you and see where we are on this journey. What I love about what we do on Mornings with Marva and the A Lawful Truth podcast is we pay for our stuff. I paid for the music for the podcast. I paid for the music that I'm now using for Mornings with Marva. And for those of you who don't remember it, remember this. Let me hold on. Let me give you a sample. Because when I left the radio station, I took it with me. I absolutely took it with me. So this is mine. This is mine. So this is how we're going to open the show every day moving forward, so that people can hear. This is how we'll start the show with our musical instrumental. We'll end the show this way. I'm grateful to all of you that have allowed me the space. But I remember when I kept wanting to have my own opening for the show, and no one was paying me any attention because Facebook was shutting down anything that was someone else's music. And so I paid someone in Atlanta. She was all of 23 when she created this thing, and everybody loved it. Everybody loved it. So I'm going to conscript with her now to do an instrumental for Mornings with Mother, and so we can have our own thing. You got to put the product in, got to put the time and the product in to get what you need out. So yesterday I had a meeting, and when I got there and I was talking to the folks, they said, I want to show you the conditions that we're working in. And I said, okay. So I went with them into like a basement space. And what I found were flying cockroaches, black mold, um, rusted stuff because the rain kept coming into the space, ceilings stripping. And I'm thinking, wait, we're not in a third world country where we don't have. I need you all to understand that folks are living and working in conditions that are absolutely untenable, and we behave as if all is well around us all the time. I happen to know that this is something that we have seen because we've traveled across the country, we've driven across the country, and and have seen people living in houses where the roofs have caved in on one side, and so they live on the other side, and they have buckets of water to bring things in. We've been in parts of the country where people did not have running water in their homes, like right now. We behave as if when we travel, this is only happening in other countries. It's happening right here in these United States. And when we don't have, what's the word I'm searching for? When we don't have compassion for people beyond ourselves, we think that these things are only happening in other places. But right here in Philadelphia is what I saw yesterday, right? People are living and working under these kinds of conditions. So be careful. what you say. Be careful how you judge. Be careful of the things you think, that can't happen here because it's happening right here. Folks have talked about, and I've talked to plumbers who said they've gone in homes where people have not had running water in their homes for years. The water department shut off their water, or they had flooding and they were not able to fix it, and there was mold and mildew and all sorts of things going on. We need to be mindful. We need to be incredibly mindful about the way we talk about and judge people. And then I put up a post yesterday morning about the upcoming primaries and why I had not seen or heard anything. And some folks from the Democratic Party said, told me that it was because these primaries are not so hotly contested that they kind of know, who may win these things. And so my question was, well, don't we want people to come out and vote, whether they're hotly contested or not? They said yes, but they've got to put the monies, for the main elections in November. And then I began going down a rabbit hole because I saw something at the DNC Democratic National Committee level, at the highest level, the national level, that they were removing um, Malcolm Kenyatta, and a young man by the name of David Hogg from their posts because there was some inappropriate action taken in order for them to do their election. And so now they have to redo their elections because a woman said that she did not have an opportunity, and that it was against whatever it is that they were supposed to do, some bylaws or something they did that was inappropriate. So they made the vice chairs null and void, which is David Hogg and Malcolm Kenyatta. And so now there's this whole brouhaha going on. So I began going down a rabbit hole. Everybody kept talking about this, and I'm like, I don't know who this person is. So I need you all, because I'm not assuming that everyone reads or are part of my social media space, but I know quite a few of you listen, if not in the moment, later on during the day or in the weekend when you have some time. This was written by the Rolling Stones. I want to fix it. David Hogg knows why Democrats lost young voters. The Parkland survivor, remember that Parkland High School where a shooter came in and all these people lost their lives? David Hogg was sitting in a classroom in that moment when it was going on. The Parkland survivor and DNC vice chair candidate on the failed political system and how Democrats can win back America's young people. It was written by Tessa Stewart on January 31st, 2025, right after Donald Trump became president of these United States. Uh, now I can't open it, Lord. I can't open it now. Diggity dang it, diggity dang it. I'm not subscribing to another thing. I'm just not. I cannot in these Wakandan streets. But anyway, the gist of it was David he began with a group of people. Let me give you the gist of it. With a group of people after the Parkland shooting, he grabbed some young people and he said, we've got to do something about gun control. We have to. And so they began, he pulled together a group of folks, and they went to DC, Washington, DC, and it was 180 something thousand of them out there. And they had smaller cliques around the country really, pushing and asking for gun reform. What ended up happening out of that was David realized that they were just not being heard. The young people, they got some reform done where you have to be 21 in order to buy a gun. That was them. But because his face was out in the public eye, people began targeting him, and not just within the Democratic Party, but with the Republicans. They called him a troll, all sorts of things. So he knew he couldn't run for office in a traditional sense, because if he ran, then they would raise enough money, double the money or triple the money for an opponent on the other side to make sure that he would never win an election. So after all of this was going on, he decided that, and the friends that were out with him doing what they were doing to get gun control laws shifted and changed, they got exhausted and they dropped off one by one, two by two. He said he couldn't afford to do that because he understood what was at stake. So he formed an organization called Leaders We Deserve, excuse me, and raised a ton of money. Somewhere in between 2023 and 2023, he had an interview with Joe Biden. Then he said he wished he had told Joe Biden then to drop out of the race. As you all know, Joe Biden hung on in there until July, middle to the end of July. really right after I interviewed him, that he decided to step down, which only gave the person coming in, which was Vice President Kamala Harris, 3.5 to 4 months to make a case to become president of the United States. I'm just giving you the backdrop of all of this. Somewhere between 2020 and 2024, he ran for vice chair of the National Democrat National Group Committee. He and Kenyatta, Malcolm Kenyatta, won. The woman who, other three women who ran, felt that they didn't have an option. So Malcolm Kenyatta had 298 votes. He had 214, 216, somewhere in there. The thought is, and I'm saying the thought is because I spent all of yesterday when I was not working with clients, reaching out to people in the political party to ask some questions. The thought is they did not want Malcolm Kenyatta for obvious reasons, that he was openly LGBTQ. They felt like he didn't. Pull his weight with his constituents. Again, this is not Andrea talking, that he just kept running for higher offices, and that's what he was doing. So they didn't, and then he couldn't keep a staff because all these other things were going. That was the thought with Malcolm Kenyatta. With David Hogg, they thought he was speaking up too much. He had too many ideas, and he was challenging the status quo in the Democratic Party. So this is I'm going to read this to you, and my guest will be on soon. So this is what I wrote. I said I began researching David Hogg after I saw the New York Times article this morning, and I am intrigued. He summed up what many have been saying for years while being dismissed by party leaders, who will then go ahead and appoint people who did nothing for the constituents they are elected to serve beyond being media darlings looking for the next high profile thing to do. And then, in quotation, this was David Hogg's words. The reason Democrats lost ground with young people and with Americans more broadly in 2024, in Hogg's view, is pretty simple. People felt like we were not listening to them. In poll after poll, people were saying Joe Biden is too old, the cost of living is too high, the war in Gaza needed to end, but the party was not responding to those signals, any of them. Rent skyrocketed for the past 4 years, and our party has done such a good job of making our consultants so fabulously wealthy that they became detached from that reality. If you own a house and you have a fixed rate mortgage, your cost of living in terms of how much it costs for you to have your home, it's actually going down over time, he says. Even now, after the fact, he says, it still feels like no one is listening. We went out there for 8 years saying Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. If he is elected, the world is going to end and democracy is over. And then he got elected. And after he was elected, Democrats effectively said, well, guys, there isn't anything different we could have done. Let's throw our hands up in the air and we'll see you again in 4 years. And we hope that you keep donating and opening our bullshit emails that treat you like an ATM instead of a human being. This man has said what so many people have said over the years. In 2023 and 2024, I was on the air at the radio station saying we're ignoring young people at our own peril. I had a young woman on from the League of Women Voters. Her name was Niles, and she was 20, maybe 24, 25, and she was giving me every month, word for word, what young people were thinking while trying to remain bipartisan, like, nonpartisan, sorry, nonpartisan. And I kept getting in my ear, stop talking about the young people. They don't care. They're not a good voting bloc, etc., etc. But the young people were out there talking and talking and talking and saying, this is what's bothering us. And no one listened. Do you realize they are now one of the largest voting blocs in this country? And so the young people have decided that since you're not going to listen, we're going to become progressives. We're going to become independents. We're going to shake up these elections in ways that you can't even begin to imagine. So David Hogg was one as one of the two vice chairs of the Democratic National Committee coalition, whatever they call themselves, but it's at the national level. While in there, it's only been a few months now, he kept saying to the Democrats, you cannot continue to feed money to the incumbents that have done absolutely nothing. They would not listen to him. So he threatened them. He said, I have $20 million sitting in Leaders We Deserve. He said, I'm going to take it and run people against you all in the primaries while sitting in the Democratic Party. He said, because you're not listening. People are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And then something happened. So the folks that I've been talking to at the local and national level, not even local, national levels, said to me, the top brass in the Democratic Party are offended that he would want to change the status quo, offended that all they keep losing. He said they keep pointing fingers at each other and nothing is shifting and changing. Nothing. And so where do we go? Where do we go? If you look at the data, more people have left the Democratic Party and became um, independents. They okay, we got we didn't do this. Or last year, I kept saying we keep having these parties and bringing in these big stars to come into Philadelphia because Pennsylvania was one of the stomping grounds where they spent a lot of time and millions of dollars. I went to several meetings, sat in the room, talked to the people at the national level, and I said, this is not going to work. You keep ignoring the people that live here in this city in favor of bringing in big stars. And I know y'all don't want to talk about this, but let me tell you something. We are doomed to repeat it. And if we don't figure this thing out, it's going to get worse over time. Some of the folks, the local folks, were like, why aren't you coming into our neighborhoods? Why aren't we the ones talking to the people in our neighborhoods? Who are these people that you're bringing in? And they kept ignoring them. When they brought in the big stars, most of the people that were there were the folks who were in the party, their families, their friends that they invited, and the average citizen that lived in this city or in the Commonwealth felt maligned. So I began hearing the scuttlebutt in the background, and I kept trying to tell them, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. I have said time and again, stop telling people who to vote for. Give them the information and let them decide for themselves. Congressman Clyburn, I got a call on Mother's Day of last year from someone in the Democratic Party who was so disgusted and busted and said, I'm sick and tired of trying to get in touch with you and these interviews are being funneled to someone else when we believe you are a good interviewer and that you would get it done. So on the day before Mother's Day, sitting in my son's car, I was interviewing Congressman James Clyburn, and we began having a conversation. Last night, I was at a dinner. I keep telling you all, when we open these microphones, it is to be responsible with them, not to just talk to hear ourselves talk, not to treat people like SHIT because we just think we're so important. I'm sitting in this dinner with a whole bunch of folks at the Pyramid Club. And as I was leaving, one of the young people said to me, I remember you. I was running for such and such office. You interviewed me, and I remember it sticking in my brain that I had done several interviews before you, and they kept all of them asked me the same five dry questions. You dug in and made me start to talk about who I was, kind of like I did yesterday. We have to be responsible with the way we interview people. We have to be responsible. And the scuttlebutt is if people are not prepared, they will not come on the air and talk to me because I'm not unkind. Not am I not unkind. I will let you talk yourself into a hole. Seriously. Right? And let the people make up their minds for themselves. So, y'all, please be fair, you know, ask the questions. I'm not doing I got you thing when I'm interviewing people. I'm literally asking the questions that I know the people want to hear, not what I want to hear or how I want to hear myself talk. And so this poor job that the Democrats have been doing for so long. And I said it and I've said it and I've said it. When we ask the questions, people get offended. Your egos are so much bigger than what should be happening for the people you're purportedly supposed to serve. And we see it over and over and over again. So it's not just the young people, it's the people who are in the communities. Do you know the best leaders are the ones that first start out in their neighborhoods, that see a problem, want to talk about the problem, have figured out a way to solve the problem? They're the ones that emerge into leadership. And then they're met with a stiff-necked group of people who say things like, not your turn. You got to do things a certain way. You got to pay off this one and pay off that one. And so people, because they feel like they didn't have a choice for the most part, voted for what we have right now. Stop telling people they don't have a choice. Don't do it. Don't do it. So I was also told, don't take calls from this one and don't take calls from that one. I said, they are the listening audience. We don't have a service to offer if we don't first listen to the people that are calling in to talk about what matters to them. It might seem like, well, we need more high profile people to call in. We need people who are, to not tie up the phone lines. And then when people were told they could only call in for a minute or once a day, the phone line started to get quiet. And people would choose who they would call in to talk about. I need you all, please, if you call yourself a journalist, if you call yourself a media person, not just to follow the facts, but to use your God given good sense to treat people well when they take the time to have the calls and the conversations with you. Stop thinking that because you're a name brand and everybody knows your name, that this is what you're going to get. And then when all things started to fall apart, you get on the air and says, this is who I'm voting for. Have you lost your minds? You can't be in that space and then tell people who to vote for. It's not going to work. It doesn't work. So now I'm watching David Hogg. I'm watching now my antenna is on him. I'm watching everything that he says and does. No, he's not going to be perfect. The brain, and this is hard data, the brain is not fully developed until you're about 27, 28. He's 24 years old. So he's going to make some missteps. And even after his brain is fully developed, he's going to step in some horse dookie because we're not perfect people. But the goal is to take the good, measure it out, and try to figure it out. So one of the national people that I was talking to yesterday said to me, "You really would make stop talking. The devil is a liar." I had folks from DC step into my house and ask me to run for particular. I said I will not. And you hear me here. My ultimate goal is to stay behind the scenes and love on the people and help the people to get what they need. Because when you become a politician on some level, you have to compromise. You always have to compromise. And as you're compromising, you will find yourself on a slippery slope if you're not careful. And then there's some that have been sitting in there so long, they forget that this is not for them to come and live. That other people have to take an opportunity, that we have to continue to have the things growing. And so now we're in a stagnant situation. What is going to happen to the people? Who's going to talk about the people and give the people what they want? Who? What is that going to look like? And so until we figure this out, we will continue to have folks voting for people that we keep saying is against their best interest. We will keep having that. And everybody's going to be pissed off and mad. And oh my God, I can't believe people did this and they voted against their best interest. But we've been talking about the fact that we have not been listening to people for a long, long, long time. So here we are. What do we do? Do we suck salt through a wooden spoon and sit there and say, this is not my thing? I can't believe she's saying that. Or do we finally open up our ears and say, yeah, we got to do something about this? The infighting in the Democratic Party is ridiculous. I'm sure there's infighting in the Republican Party too, but guess what? I'm not hearing it. We're not hearing that for the most part. And when they do, they act like it's much ado about nothing and going about their business. We allowed the spook that sat at the door to be at the door. Because we're hard headed, and won't do what we're supposed to do. So let my guest in, because Lord, I went on a whole tangent just now.
Good morning.
Everybody love it. Everybody.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Dr. Davida Titus Thomas. I'm looking forward to having a turn your sound up a little bit for me. You sound a little low.
Sure I turned it down. Sure I turned it down a little bit.
We can hardly hear
Okay, thank you. Is
you. A
that
little
much
more.
better?
That's a little better, yes. All right, so let me introduce you to the folks here. Good morning, Roz. Dr. Davia Titus Thomas is a part of the organization Peace of Mind, Mental Health and Wellness, a space that is dedicated to providing the least invasive, evidence based mental health care to promote long term holistic wellness. With a deep commitment to empowering individuals, their mission is to help each person find healing and growth by offering a safe and supportive space where solutions are found, peace is restored, and inner strength is unlocked. Dr. Davia. Lord have mercy. Ooh, you're from Jamaica.
Yes, I am. Thank
This is
you.
getting better.
Thank
Ooh,
you.
she's a U.S. citizen who natively hails from the beautiful sunshiny hills of Jamaica. She's a board certified psychiatric and mental health nurse practitioner. She also holds a medical degree certified in Cuba, Jamaica, and the Caribbean islands, and has a United States certificate from the Education Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates. Lord, I'm not going to go into this. Let's get into the talk. You and I are going to talk about peace of mind, mental health, and wellness, and the various services you offer. You will also give us your take on why it's crucial for us to prioritize our mental health as we go through various tribulations in life. Good morning, my yardie sister. Good morning.
Good good morning. Thank you so much, Andrea, for having me on your
You're
show.
welcome. You still
I
sound low, and I don't know
totally
if it's me
appreciate.
or you. Hold on one second, Dr. W. It could have
Okay,
been
I
me.
went.
Talk to me again, please.
All right. Can you hear me better now?
You still sound low, and I'm not sure why. So I need
Okay,
y'all to
hold
come
on.
on over to YouTube so you can see her and hear her properly.
All
Um,
right. So
Mental
I'm gonna.
health and wellness. Let's talk a little bit about that. Why did you get into that space? What was your story that led you into that space in a holistic way?
So I definitely have a story that caused me to get into the field of mental health. So initially, is is extremely important to mention that I'm an individual of a humble background, and starting originally from Jamaica, then I transitioned to Cuba, and when I got into that space, even though was already humble, it's as if that humility was taken to a different level. So after completing all my studies, and when I really got into the, as we would say, the nitty gritty of things, I was totally appalled when I entered the arena and I realized how individuals who are of low,
Dr. Davia, they can't hear you. And I
they can't
really
hear.
want people to hear you. We got to figure out how to. Are you wearing earbuds? No, you're not.
I'm
Uh,
not. If I put my volume up to, let's see,
100. Put it all the way up to
one
100.
100, is that better?
You a little. You speak softly, so can you elevate your voice just a little bit for me, please?
Okay, I definitely will. Is that better?
That's a little better. Yes.
Okay, right. So as I was saying that when I entered the mental health arena, I was totally surprised at the way in which individuals were being treated, especially those who are of a low socioeconomic background and also those who speak different languages.
Mhm.
I noticed that, for example, because of their background, at times they would be given diagnoses that were totally not in alignment with their presenting condition. For example, they'd be given a diagnosis that is more severe, that would require more severe treatment, and of course, being given uh, a modality of treatment that is too extreme, then of course you would expect possibly more complications, or even though possibly the treatment could work, but it was not the treatment that was warranted in that individual at that particular time. So I said, you know what? I am already making a difference, but I need to make a bigger impact on the way in which I view mental health and the way in which I treat patients.
Mhm.
And to take it to another level, I also had an encounter with a patient one day, and she said to me that she has realized that many providers are hiding the secret to great mental health. And I was saying, okay, go into a little bit more detail for me. And she explained to me that because of her spiritual background, she has realized that that is one of the main secret that allows individual to have a greater mental health. But in the arena that I was placed, I was actually not really written up, but given a warning
Mhm.
that I'm not allowed to go into that aspect of health. And I was totally taken back, saying to myself, okay, how could that be? If studies have shown that individuals who view of high importance the spiritual aspect of their mental health generally tend to experience significant improvement with respect to their mental health status. And so I decided that, okay, Even though I'm already making a great impact, I can even make a greater impact in the community, especially those who are less fortunate, those who are
Right.
underserved. And recently I came across a patient too, and she explained to me that one of her primary problem, one of the main problems she would encounter is being able to find a provider her color that accepts Medicare, Medicaid, because most, of course, we know that those type of insurances at times their compensation is a little bit lower compared to the
Right.
other insurances. So she was extremely happy that she was able to find somebody who is able to provide a service that is willing to accept the kind of insurance that she
Right.
has.
When you talk about holistic mental wellness, folks have, don't want to be on medication. And so they've gone to meditation, doing things differently. What does holistic mental health wellness mean to you?
So for me, holistic mental health is extremely significant in from my perspective. One has to consider not just a single aspect. I realize that the World Health Organization, they placed emphasis on the social, the physical aspect, and also the mental health aspect of one's well-being.
Hmm.
But I have realized that not only those areas are important. The physical, yes, is important, the mental is important, the social is important, but I think that what needs to be added to that definition of health is the spiritual aspect of mental health.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because to me, if yes, I'm holding a good weight, I'm physically healthy, no significant disease, or it could be that I do have a certain disease, but I have it all taken care of. Taking my medicines, I'm doing my exercise,
Hmm.
and I'm eating healthily, and those areas are working well. The social aspect, it could be that, okay, I have a great interaction with those with whom I encounter on a daily basis, my coworkers, my family, the world in general. It could be also that, so we have the physical,
Hmm.
we have the mental, right? So
Hmm.
mentally it could be that, okay, I'm not experiencing symptoms. It could be, for example, not eating well, not sleeping well, low energy, or it could be even experiencing psychosis. But also, I think that we have to take the spiritual aspect into being, where you realize that, okay, I need to have a connection with
To
the
something
higher.
bigger than myself.
Exactly. So I think that if we take into consideration all those different aspects, the social, the physical, the mental, the spiritual, then that is definitely what I consider. When everything is acting in homeostasis, everything is going well together, then I can say, okay, I'm experiencing holistic mental health, holistic health.
Holistic health. Do you find that with holistic health, you sometimes still have to use medication depending on who you're serving, or do you not use medication at all?
I definitely use medication as well, but uh, for me, my take to things is I look at the entire picture. So I'm going to explore all the different areas of your health. And then based on the symptoms, based on your presenting, the way in which you present to me, then I will decide, okay, this individual needs more than the ordinary. This individual needs not just possibly psychotherapy, but this individual also needs to have medication or chemical intervention. So, based on what I find on the examination and also the complementary studies that are done, we already know that in mental health there are not a lot of different tests that we have available at our
Hmm.
disposition. But yes, there are different tests that we could use. Simply speaking, there is the Patient Health Questionnaire 9, there's also the Patient Health Questionnaire 2, we have the General Anxiety GAD 7 score. So these are different modalities that we could give to the patient. They complete it,
But you're
and then
talking about something, forgive me, Dr. Davia. You're talking about something that I have not seen many people experience when they go to see a therapist. They sit down and they talk. They ask them some questions, but we don't. I mean, I've been to therapy, and I've never been given something that says fill this out to give me a an idea, about where you are. Oh, thank you, Shakira. They keep saying it's pretty low. They really want to hear you. Um, uh, uh, there's a whole general, is your mother alive? Is your father alive? I get those questions, but there's some folks who have general anxiety that pops up as a direct result of something that trauma induced in their lives, and then there are others that are under constant anxiety. And what happens with that, and why is it in our communities, particularly our brown communities? uh, you know I didn't know about therapy in Jamaica at all, at all. And my mother lived to be 80, almost 82 years old, with anxiety and depression her entire life. And what they said in Jamaica was she's just miserable. That was the diagnosis. She's just miserable. So she'd
yeah,
have these moments of just joy. She loves her children. She loved her children, loved her nieces and nephews, etc. But there were days when she would sit in the chair and was just moody.
wow.
And no matter what we said to her, she was like, leave me alone. And she would snap at us, kind of thing. It took my saying, and this may have been about 4 or 5 years ago, stop calling her miserable.
Yeah.
Something is wrong.
Mm-hmm. I'm
Something
so
is wrong.
sorry you had to go through that
But she
experience.
lived her entire life like this. And then when she passed away, guess what popped up out of the woodwork? Family members going, oh, my child is going through this, and my uncle is going through this, and my father was going through this. And we spend a lot of time in our communities, not just, I'm talking about Black people in general. We spend a lot of time in our communities hiding the fact that these are the issues that people are going through
Yeah,
because we're afraid of the stigma. How can
yeah.
we destigmatize what folks are going through instead of thinking people are just lazy and they're just laying in the bed all day and they don't want to get up and they have no ambition? There's an underlying issue here. So how do we pull through that? A, and B, Dr. Davia, you're talking about something that the medical association does not want you to talk about. How many times did you get your hand slapped for holistic healthcare? I'm going there because I've had conversations with doctors who have said, listen, I don't even know how to deal with this. I may have to leave the medical profession altogether. You're just as cute as you want to be, look very healthy, and I know they're not agreeing a lot with the things that you're talking about right now with me. So how do you navigate that? And how do we get people to recognize, to destigmatize mental health wellness in our communities?
So you're totally right. That is the first area that we need to do continuous work on. We, I'm not going to say that the stigma is just the same as it was many years ago, possibly when your mom was younger.
Yes.
Things have gotten better over the years, but definitely there is always room for growth. I think that it should start from the general education of the public. What are the signs? What are the symptoms that we look
Mhm.
for in an
Mhm.
individual? It is not that we're going to go around labeling every individual, okay, because you're not sleeping well, because you're depicting certain type of behavior, then it means that you have a mental health problem. But then at least if we're aware of the general presenting conditions of individuals with mental health, then we're better able to make a more significant impact. So if in the home setting, individuals are more educated, they know what symptoms to recognize, what to pick up on, certain behaviors, then we could take it to a wider area in the schools. We take it to the community. We take it to the churches. We take it even on the level, government level. There are so many areas that we could bring the word, keep spreading the information so that more people are aware of exactly what to look for in
Mhm.
individuals who are experiencing mental health. And one individual could refer the other and say, okay, I noticed so and so is going on. How about maybe talking to somebody? How about talking to your doctor and see if there is anything that is possibly going on where interventions could be made in order for the health to improve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you did mention about the spiritual aspect of things. And
Yes.
so I know that it was one big time, okay? So I generally approach it in a way where I pose the question to the patient so that, because it's a part of your history where you will tell me, okay, just like you'll tell me about your educational background,
Mm-hmm.
you'll tell me about your working situation, your living situation, then it is also important for me to ask you about your religious beliefs. Yeah. And then, based on what I'm told, then I could actually go into further details. Because it could be that an individual, yes, is connected to a higher source, an individual that they recognize that is greater than they are, who is able to bring them through the situations that they experience in life. But it could be that they're not practicing those habits. So I could believe, but I'm not getting together with others who believe. I am not, whatever the practices are. So then, based on the information that is fed to me, then I could get to the point where I encourage them so that they know that it is not just saying, it is also implementing, because that
Mm-hmm.
is what is going to make the most significant impact in an individual being able to have
Yeah.
great mental health.
I think, Dr. Davia, that more people in churches would show up for mental health care if they believed that holistic part of them will be able they'll be able to talk about what matters. I have heard doctors say over and again where they thought people only had 2 weeks to live, but their faith.
There you go.
We think that our belief in God or our practices of being involved with a higher power, something greater than ourselves, is hokey pokey.
It is
And
not.
we make people believe that medical science cannot be, there's nothing above medical science. If I tell you you're going to die in 2 weeks, but you live for 24 years, you
Mm-hmm.
believe it's an anomaly somewhere. It can't be that thing, that higher power that you believe in, that it can't be that your faith is greater than what medical science is telling me.
Exactly. Definitely.
And there are folks who have rebuffed and shown time and time again that your belief, your faith, your belief in a higher power, in God, I'm just going to use God as an example, is is what's keeping you alive.
Yes.
But we also know in medical science, so does the mind go, so does everything else.
There you go.
So if we don't believe that we're going to be well, then we won't be well. If we
Exactly.
believe that we're going to beat and conquer something, that what we think in our head is what comes out of our mouth, is what our body has to respond to. Now, I'm
Yes.
just a layperson, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I can see that, why is it that the I just answered my own question because they want you to take the pills. They want you to, you know, and so there are folks who are in the higher echelons of business and industry who are suffering with things like paranoid schizophrenia, who will, before they will go and have themselves diagnosed on paper, will go and get illicit drugs to make themselves feel better. And it's a thing that tumbles, it's like a tumbleweed that's
There you
going
go.
down, downhill, downward, down the hill. I asked you this question, and I really fully want to answer this for me. Have you been challenged by the medical association about the way you practice because you believe in that holistic faith part of it?
So I would say that definitely I was challenged, especially on one specific occasion that I remember. And it is from that moment that I decided that, okay, if I'm building, if I get to the point where I'm able to have my own practice,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm going to make it clear that I'm an individual who truly believes
Mm-hmm.
that faith has a lot to do with the process of healing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Are you practice where are you practicing now? What state?
so I see patients in New Jersey, in Pennsylvania, and I'm currently doing virtually, and the plan is to expand as time progresses. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Alexandra says, Doctor, I have a family member who acknowledges she knows that she needs therapy. However, she doesn't want to speak to a stranger about what's bothering her. I have a feeling she'd be comfortable with you.
Oh, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
So,
And
yes,
and
due
I
to
like
your,
I'm sorry.
go
So
ahead. She said,
I like the fact that she said a stranger, because some individuals find it easier to speak to somebody that they don't know. And then after they develop a relationship with that individual, then they become more comfortable
mm-hmm,
and able to better share they're experiencing, and
mm-hmm,
improvement in their health as
mm-hmm.
a result.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Laverne says, Alexandra, my son doesn't like going because he said he told the therapist all about himself. And when he went to the next appointment, she didn't remember him. Well, that's just an indictment. That's horrible. Trust and feeling safe space is important for me. Cheryl says she agrees. She said, Alexandra says, I changed therapists because when I shared with her regarding a family trauma, she kept insisting that I reach out to the person who caused me the trauma. She now has she has to have a black female therapist now who implements spirituality also. So there's something to this. Shakila says, from what I understand, she does a pre assessment, which is great. How does Dr. Davia think other non traditional therapeutic practices, such as EMDR? What is EMDR? Do you know what EMDR is, Dr. Davia? Can
So
you hear me?
that is right. So 1 second. Electric, magnetic.
And Laverne
It's
says, when I have coaches and therapists, they pray with me, for me, and encourage my connection with God in addition to the talks. And even if meds are suggested, I'm grateful whom I selected. I don't even know what EMDR is. Do you know?
so I do know. In America we use so much acronyms, but it has to do a lot with eye, like a specific type of treatment where you incorporate eye movement within that therapy.
Really, really. Shakila, she does therapy online, so you don't have to worry about going to her. Correct? So your
Exactly.
therapy is online, Doctor. There's a
Right.
yeah. There is a there's a delay on your end. So when I'm talking to you, you don't hear it for like 3 seconds. So
Okay,
that's
I'm so
cool. So how can they reach you? Let's go there.
right. So individuals could reach me from, first of all, from the website.
Okay.
It is peaceofmindmentalhealthandwellness.com.
Peace,
Peace
that alone,
as a
of
long,
mind,
yeah,
mental
mental
health
health
and
and
wellness.com.
wellness. Right. And also to get me, the number is 215-929-6877.
So to call you, it's 215-929-6877, right?
Thank you. Yeah.
6877. 215-929-6877.
Yeah.
Uh, what insurances do you take?
So I do take Medicare, Medicaid, Aetna, Blue Cross, Blue Shield. I'm currently working on getting credentialed with United Healthcare as well.
Okay, okay. All right. Dennis says, I got therapy this morning from this program. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I
I'm trying to, for those of you who balk at therapy, I ask for you to give it another thought. Um, I, Jean says, Dr. and Andrea Lawful Sanders, thanks for an informative and clarifying discussion. It is important for us. I think that we saw mental health issues spike during COVID when
did.
everybody was home and trying to figure out what they were doing. And I made it to, my mother died 2 years ago, so I made it to 56 without having to go to therapy. But I was generally a happy-go-lucky, knew how to work through my stuff, and to take leadership courses and to acknowledge the things that I've done wrong and to work with the things that I've done right. So I was doing therapy myself. I've taken some courses on counseling, uh, um, and really paying attention to the behaviors of people around me. Not everybody is there, right? So there are folks who truly, and now at this tender age of almost 60, I'm like, give me some therapy quickly with my cup of tea. Because you live to this place and you're like, okay, this is a lot. This is absolutely a lot. I just want to thank you so much for joining us this morning. You are temperate, your voice is you're soft spoken. I can see why people would enjoy talking to you. Laverne says EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy is a structured form of psychotherapy that helps individuals process traumatic memories and associated emotional distress. Okay.
Right. So for those type of therapy, you have to have a special certification to perform those therapy. So for me, with my medical background and as well as my studies in psychiatry and mental health, so I do specialize. For all patients, I'll do a psychiatric evaluation, and also I'm extremely great at doing medication management as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what patients have said to me is that they like the balance that I take, because
Mm-hmm.
most individuals with that background, their job, they'll say, okay, take this medication, go home, and no explanation, no talk. But I really like when I'm seeing a patient, I'll based on the information that you're feeding to me, I'll mentally take notes and realize what are the areas in your life that I really need to address.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end, if, say, for example, medication is warranted, I'm not going to say, okay, take this, go home, come back. I'll go through the different areas and I'll figure, okay, how can I best help you based on your presentation versus giving you medication, say, hold this, go home, sit down, do what you need to
Mm-hmm.
do, come back. Yeah, so that's what I mean. That's a great feedback that I've received from patients that when they compare the services that I give to them
Mm-hmm.
uh, with others, then they notice that that's the aspect,
Yeah.
that's the different part that I add to the picture.
Yeah. Andrea says, thank you for this conversation today.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate, I really do appreciate your joining us. Again,
Thank
you can reach her at 215-929-6877. It's Dr. Davia Titus Thomas. Thank you, my sister, for joining us this morning. You've given us another way to approach mental health wellness. And it's important because we do need it. And oftentimes, when we see it showing up in our communities, is when something has gone completely over to the other side, where they've just lost focus, all the things that are happening with them. And then family members don't want to be judged, so they don't talk about it. They just disappear for a while.
Right.
Um, Laverne says, Andrea, I agree. I think the struggle also is many will do just that and offer meds and send patients home. So it's been very difficult for a lot of people. And folks, you've had to convince folks to go back to therapy because they've had really bad episodes with therapists, and don't want to keep trying. But you've now given them another option. So thank you so much. And
Mm,
hopefully, folks will be calling you.
right.
Alexander says, I'm going to share this with my family member. Thank you both for this conversation. It was
All
a
right. Thank you
pleasure.
so much, Andrew, for having me on on your show. I totally appreciate you
You're
and
so
continue
welcome.
to make such a big impact that you've been making in the community. We really appreciate you and all the best in all your endeavors.
Thank you, my sister. Same to you.
You're welcome.
All
Have a
right. Bye
beautiful
bye.
day, okay?
You too. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Ah, that was a good conversation for me. Um, it takes courage to admit that you don't always have it together. And oftentimes, when I'm on the air talking to you guys or I'm posting on social media, I I think I'm talking to like a group of small friends, right? And then I go out into the community and somebody will say, "Girl, thank you for your transparency. You're helping me to do this. You're helping me to do that. You know." And I go, "Oh." And then I'm reminded that people are listening, people are hearing. I find, and this is just Andrea speaking, that when I write out, I write. I love to write. So I will write out the things that I am feeling, what I'm experiencing, only to recognize that so many other people have been going through the same thing. So when my mother was was dying, she was in hospice care. I didn't share that on social media at the time. I told everybody when my mother died, and but as she was sick and in the hospital, I was sharing the experiences that I was having, not just with the hospital, but with people, random strangers. And that's why they say I've never met a stranger. Random strangers just out in the Wawa. I remember walking behind the coffee station, a place where I wasn't supposed to be. And the woman who worked there was looking at me strangely. And I looked up and I said, because I hadn't slept in like 4 or 5 days. It was crazy. And she said to me, I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to be back here." And she said, "No, ma'am." And I said, "I'm so sorry. I'm just having a really rough morning." And she said, "What's going on?" And I said, "My mother is in the hospital up the street." And I was talking softly to her. Ooh, this is bringing tears to me. I was talking softly to her, but the people at the coffee station heard. And when I walked from behind the coffee station to get the things that I needed, because I was buying coffee and tea and stuff for my sisters and my father and anybody else who had come to help us take care of my mother, the people in the Wawa started talking to each other and they began making the coffee, getting the creamer, rubbing my back. Total strangers that I had never seen before that day, and that they kept whispering. And when I got to the counter to pay for my stuff, the lady that was in front of me, she said, "I came in here fussing about my wife, and you just reminded us all the importance of, loving on your family member." And they started to pray in the Wawa at 7 o'clock in the morning. My sisters were like, "What's taking you so long to come back?" But we are a people we're supposed to show kindness to one another. We're supposed to. And I think now we've gotten to a place where we believe that the nastier we are to each other, the better off we will feel. It's not making you feel any better. It just isn't. So when my mother died, people started inboxing me. I got inboxes around. I didn't really like my mother. My mother was so unkind to me. My mother showed favoritism to this one and that one. But you made me sit and think that at some point my mother is going to die and I have to go figure it out. Then I was getting text messages from people who said, "My mother was so awful to me. And there is no way that we can rebuild the relationship." And they shared, I've been very quiet about the things people said to me privately. I didn't share their stuff. But what they said to me was, "You taught me how a mother should be. You taught me through your love of your mother, you and your sisters, when all of you showed up and was taking 24-hour cycles. My youngest sister and I just stopped working cold turkey for 5 weeks. Didn't care. We both thought we were like, well, it is what it is. But we have one mother. And every one of us have to go this way. At some point, I am going to expire and my soul will leave my body. And so while I am here, I'm not just loving on my children, I'm loving on all of you, so that you can understand that we're not perfect people, that we're going to make mistakes, that we're going to do things that may upset other people. But we have to learn how to hold people accountable and forgive. Hold people accountable and still love them. Hold people accountable and give them space to be human. People have gotten into trouble, paid their debt to society, and we're still holding them accountable for it. Like, cut it out. Can we be better? And when you treat people well, that comes back to you over time. It does. It absolutely does. So we have to find the better ways. We have to find normal. We can't be so all about ourselves and all about how we feel miffed about this, and that. If you listen to the conversation, one of the things I love about David Alexander Jenkins is that we believe intrinsically that what do we do for those who can't do anything for themselves? How do we lift up people who can't lift themselves? How do we tell people to get the boots someone said last night at the dinner? How do we tell people to lift up themselves by their bootstraps where they don't have boots? They don't have anything. And we take those people who are struggling and co opt them to make ourselves feel better about ourselves. See, I did this, and see, I did that. And oh my God, I took this one out of poverty. And oh my God, I did. Stop it, y'all. Stop it. Just love on people. That's all is required. That is all that is required. And so I'm grateful. I'm grateful to all of you. It is 7:30. I have to take my behind and go to the gym. Um, we're gonna come back and talk about menopause and OBGYN another day because that was my day yesterday afternoon. She was cracking up with laughter like you are hilarious. But if you don't have insurance, how do you go? How do you go get your yearly exam? Your mammograms need to be done. You need to make sure that you're healthy in other ways. And we were talking about fibroids in our African American community. And men, open your ears and listen to this, please. I'm begging you. In our African American communities, a lot. It happens to all women, but fibroids are a huge issue. And many women have been told that they had to get hysterectomy. Now I've used my uterus. My uterus is over and done with. But I just wanted you to be able to understand what that looks like. And sometimes it's painful for a lot of women. And so I was talking to the OBGYN about fibroids, and she said, now we've gotten to the place where when a woman has fibroids and it's uncontrollable, we go ahead and remove the entire uterus without interrupting the fibroids, because sometimes those fibroids have cancer in them. And when we cut into them to remove them, the cancer spreads. And now they have cancer in their uterine wall. They have cancer everywhere else. So, they're thinking through now what they do and how they do it to help us. There's so much to deal with, but I'm getting off of this. I gotta go put on my gym clothes. I love you all. Tomorrow is Love is Thursday. And somehow I froze on Instagram, so we'll work that out. Tomorrow is Love is Thursday. Find your ways to find your joy and your peace. And when you know that you have not done enough to love and support the people around you, when you find that you've made mistakes or someone said to you, you were awful to me as I was growing up, make that thing right. Don't say, I am who I am. That's not good. Make that thing right, okay? This episode of Mornings with Mother is officially over. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. I'll see you when I see you. Bye, everybody. Bye bye.